She collapsed on stage, mid-song, straight into her duet partner's arms, and never fully recovered. A former Temptation was dumped at a hospital entrance by a friend who then drove off with the money in his pocket. A soul icon insisted on being buried in a bright red robe in an open casket as one final act of defiance. Every one of these 12 legends is gone. Every one of these 12 songs is still alive, still played, still sampled, still loved by people who have no idea what the artist behind it actually went through. This is R&B GroovLore, the channel that digs up the true stories behind the music. These are 12 forgotten R&B legends whose voices refuse to die with them. Let's count them down. Number 12. Bill Withers, Lean on Me, 1972. Before Bill Withers ever wrote a hit song, he was working on an assembly line building airplane toilets for a company that made parts for jumbo jets. He was already in his 30s, considered old for a debut artist by industry standards, and he kept his day job even after his first single became a hit, because he didn't trust the music business to last. Lean on Me came from a memory of his childhood in Slab Fork, West Virginia, a small coal mining town where neighbors leaned on each other because nobody had much else. He wrote it on a piano he had just bought and barely knew how to play, banging out simple chords until the words fell into place. The song hit number 1 in 1972 and has been covered by more artists than almost any soul song ever written, from gospel choirs to rock bands to presidential inaugurations. Withers eventually walked away from the music industry entirely in the 1980s, tired of fighting record labels for creative control, and simply never looked back. He died on March 30th, 2020, from heart complications, largely out of the public eye by choice. Lean on Me remains one of the most universally sung songs in American history, still played at funerals, graduations, and disasters, exactly the way he intended it. Number 11. Gerald Levert, Baby Hold On to Me, 1992. Gerald Levert grew up literally backstage, the son of Eddie Levert, the powerhouse lead voice of the OJs. Most people expected him to live in his father's shadow forever. Instead, he built his own successful career fronting the group Levert, before going solo, carving out a reputation as one of the most soulful voices of his generation. In 1992, father and son did something almost no one in R&B had done before. They recorded a hit single together. Baby Hold On to Me paired Gerald's powerful lead with Eddie's legendary harmony, and the emotional weight of a real father and son singing about holding on to each other resonated far beyond the lyrics themselves. On November 10, 2006, Gerald Levert died suddenly at his home in Cleveland, at just 40 years old. It was initially reported as a heart attack, but an autopsy later found the actual cause was a fatal combination of prescription and over-the-counter medications. Eddie Levert would have to bury a second son only 2 years later, when Gerald's brother Sean passed away as well. Baby Hold On to Me still plays as one of the most touching father-son records ever made almost unbearable to hear now, knowing what came after. You'll be so sorry, baby. Number 10. Bobby Womack, Across 110th Street, 1972. Bobby Womack wrote songs for other artists for years before the world knew his own voice, and his personal life was tangled up in tragedy from the very beginning. He was extremely close with soul legend Sam Cooke, touring in Cooke's band as a teenager, and after Cooke was shot and killed in 1964, Womack controversially married Cook's widow just months later, a decision that permanently damaged his reputation within the music industry for years.
Across 110th Street.
He kept writing and performing anyway, and by 1972 he delivered Across 110th Street, the title track for a gritty crime film about Harlem, a song built on raw, weary vocals over a driving groove that captured desperation and survival at the same time.
The family on the other.
The song became so iconic, it was later used decades afterward as the opening theme for Quentin Tarantino's film Jackie Brown, introducing Womack's voice to an entirely new generation who had no idea who he was. Bobby Womack battled colon cancer and Parkinson's disease in his later years, and died on June 27, 2014, at the age of 70. Across 110th Street remains one of the most sampled and referenced soul records in hip-hop and film history.
Harlem is the capital of every ghetto town.
Number 9. Sylvester, You Make Me Feel Mighty Real, 1978. Sylvester grew up singing gospel in a Pentecostal church in Los Angeles, until the congregation shunned him for being openly gay as a teenager. He left home, found community among a group of gender non-conforming performers in San Francisco, and built a stage persona that was flamboyant, fearless, and years ahead of its time. You Make Me Feel Mighty Real became a massive disco and R&B crossover hit in 1978, driven by his soaring falsetto, and turned him into one of San Francisco's biggest stars, known affectionately as the Queen of Disco. Sylvester became the first major recording artist to speak publicly about having AIDS, at a time when most public figures hid the diagnosis out of fear and stigma. He continued performing as long as his health allowed, even being pushed onto a parade route in a wheelchair to be near his community one last time. He died on December 16, 1988, at just 41 years old. At his own direction, he was buried in an open casket, wearing a bright red kimono, and left all future royalties from his music to AIDS charities. You Make Me Feel Mighty Real is still a dance floor anthem decades later. Number 8. Natalie Cole, This Will Be an Everlasting Love, 1975. Natalie Cole grew up as the daughter of Nat King Cole, one of the most beloved voices in American music, and spent years trying to prove she could succeed without simply riding on his name. This Will Be an Everlasting Love became her breakout hit in 1975. A bold, horn-driven statement of independence that immediately separated her sound from her father's smooth ballads. Behind the scenes, Cole struggled for years with addiction, and later revealed she had contracted hepatitis C from drug use decades earlier, a diagnosis that eventually led to a liver transplant and lasting heart complications. In 1991, she achieved one of the most emotional moments in music history, digitally pairing her voice with archival recordings of her late father to duet on Unforgettable, technically singing with him for the first time in her life. Natalie Cole died on December 31, 2015, from congestive heart failure linked to her earlier illness. This Will Be an Everlasting Love remains the record that proved she was never just Nat King Cole's daughter. She was her own force entirely. Number 7. Barry White, Can't Get Enough of Your Love, Babe, 1974. Before he became the deepest, most recognizable voice in American music, Barry White had already served time in juvenile detention for stealing car tires as a teenager in Los Angeles. He later said hearing a recording of himself while locked up was the moment he decided to change the direction of his entire life.
What you got to do with darling I?
Can't Get Enough of Your Love, Babe became his signature hit in 1974, built almost entirely around his commanding bass baritone, speaking as much as singing, over lush cinematic orchestration that became his trademark sound for the rest of his career.
It's all I need, and more than I can stand.
White struggled for years with obesity, high blood pressure, and diabetes, health issues that eventually led to kidney failure. He initially refused dialysis treatment, reportedly telling those close to him he would rather live shorter on his own terms than be tied to a machine.
Oh, well, babe.
Barry White died on July 4, 2003, at the age of 58. Can't Get Enough of Your Love, Babe is still one of the most recognizable love songs of the 70s, built entirely on a voice its own owner once tried to run from. Number 6. Luther Vandross. Never Too Much, 1981. Long before he became one of the most successful R&B voices of his generation, Luther Vandross spent years singing backup for artists like David Bowie, Chaka Khan, and Barbra Streisand, respected everywhere in the industry but almost invisible to the public.
Hung up the phone, can't be too late. The boss is so demanding.
Never Too Much, released in 1981, changed that overnight. A joyful, propulsive love song that immediately shot to #1 on the R&B chart, and established him as a star in his own right after years of being the voice behind other people's records. Vandross battled significant weight fluctuations and diabetes throughout his adult life, health struggles that were constantly discussed in the press in ways that frustrated him. In April 2003, he suffered a severe stroke that left him unable to speak or perform for nearly 2 years.
Don't love you, you're at the top of my list 'cause I'm...
He never fully recovered and died on July 1, 2005, at the age of 54. Never Too Much remains one of the most joyous, purely uplifting songs in R&B history, still played at weddings decades after the man who wrote it stopped being able to sing it himself. Number 5. Phyllis Hyman, Living All Alone, 1986. Phyllis Hyman had one of the most powerful contralto voices in soul music, a Tony-nominated Broadway performer and respected recording artist, who never quite found the mainstream crossover success many felt she deserved. Living All Alone, released in 1986, became one of her most enduring records, a devastatingly honest ballad about isolation that fans and critics still call one of the great hidden gems of 80s soul. Behind her powerful stage presence, Hyman privately struggled for years with bipolar disorder and substance dependency, battles she rarely discussed publicly during a career built on projecting strength and glamour. On June 30th, 1995, just hours before she was scheduled to perform at the Apollo Theater, Hyman took her own life in her New York City apartment, leaving behind a brief note telling the people she loved that she was tired. She was 45 years old.
Oh, I don't want to be.
That night, the Apollo show went on as planned, with her bandmates performing her songs in tribute while her family looked on. Living All Alone still stands as one of the most emotionally naked vocal performances in soul music, now impossible to separate from the woman who recorded it. Number 4. Rick James, Super Freak, 1981.
It's all right. She's all right. Let's go.
Rick James spent years bouncing between bands and record deals before finally breaking through, developing a sound he proudly called punk funk, a raw fusion of rock aggression and deep funk grooves that no one else on the radio was doing quite like him. Super Freak, released in 1981, became his signature anthem, an instantly recognizable bass line and hook that turned him into one of the biggest funk stars of the decade. Years later, that same bass line became the foundation of MC Hammer's massive hit, You Can't Touch This, introducing an entirely new generation to James's sound. Though James initially received no credit and had to fight for songwriting royalties on the sample. James battled serious drug addiction for much of his adult life and suffered a stroke in the 1990s that left him needing a cane for the rest of his life, though he continued performing and recording despite the damage.
She's alright. She's alright.
Rick James died in his sleep on August 6, 2004, at the age of 56, with a heart attack listed among the contributing factors, alongside years of substance use. Super Freak remains one of the most sampled and recognizable funk records ever made.
She's alright. She's alright.
Number 3. David Ruffin. My Whole World Ended the Moment You Left Me, 1969. David Ruffin was the unmistakable lead voice behind some of the Temptations' biggest hits before internal conflict over money and credit got him fired from the group in 1968. Rather than fade away, he went solo almost immediately, and My Whole World Ended became his first major hit without the group, proving his voice alone could still carry a hit record. Ruffin struggled with drug addiction for decades afterward, in and out of legal trouble, though he continued touring and even reunited with former Temptations bandmates for successful tours in the years before his death. On the night of May 31st, 1991, Ruffin collapsed after using drugs at a house in Philadelphia. A friend drove him to the hospital in a borrowed limousine, dropped him at the emergency room entrance, told staff he had overdosed, and drove away before answering any further questions. Ruffin died shortly after, at the age of 50. A large sum of money he had been carrying was never found. My Whole World Ended remains a showcase for one of the most distinctive, gravel-edged voices Motown ever produced, cut short by the same struggles that had shadowed him for most of his career. Number 2. Eddie Kendricks, Keep On Truckin', 1973. Eddie Kendricks spent over a decade as one of the founding members of the Temptations, known for his soaring falsetto on songs like Just My Imagination, before leaving the group to try a solo career that most people assumed would go nowhere without the rest of the group behind him. Keep On Truckin', released in 1973, proved them completely wrong, becoming a massive #1 hit and one of the defining dance anthems of the early 70s. Powered entirely by Kendricks's instantly recognizable falsetto, floating over a driving groove. Kendricks was a heavy smoker for most of his adult life, a habit that eventually caught up with him in the form of lung cancer. Diagnosed in the years following a reunion tour with his former Temptations bandmates that had brought him back into the spotlight. He died on October 5, 1992, at the age of 52, just months after that reunion tour had reminded audiences everywhere why his voice had once defined an entire era of Motown. Keep On Truckin' remains one of the most joyful, propulsive records to come out of a solo career almost nobody expected to work. Number 1. Tammi Terrell, Ain't No Mountain High Enough, 1967. Tammi Terrell was paired with Marvin Gaye almost by accident, put together by Motown as one of many duet experiments the label was running. Nobody expected the chemistry that followed. Ain't No Mountain High Enough became an instant hit in 1967, one of the most beloved duets in Motown history, powered by a warmth between the two singers that felt completely real. just months after that song hit the charts. On October 14, 1967, Terrell suddenly collapsed on stage while performing with Gaye at a college in Virginia, falling directly into his arms in front of the entire audience. Doctors soon discovered a malignant brain tumor. She underwent surgery after surgery over the next 2.5 years, continuing to record and perform whenever her health allowed, refusing to simply disappear from the music she loved. Marvin Gaye was reportedly never the same after watching her decline, and developed severe stage fright that kept him off tour for years afterward. Tammi Terrell died on March 16, 1970, at just 24 years old. Ain't No Mountain High Enough is still one of the most joyful sounding records ever made, and one of the hardest to listen to once you know what was happening to the woman singing it. 12 legends. 12 songs that never left the radio, even after the voices behind them did. If one of these artists meant something to you growing up, tell us who down in the comments. And if there's a forgotten R&B legend we missed who deserves to be remembered, let us know below, because here on R&B GroovLore, we'll keep bringing the real stories back into the light. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one.